My guest today is Peta Bastian, a Circle Priestess, space holder, and intuitive guide who helps women reconnect to their voice, rhythm, and feminine essence. With a background in energy work and human design, Peta brings a beautiful blend of grounded wisdom and soulful presence to everything she does. She's led and mentored women all over the world in the art of holding space, leading circles, and creating from a place of deep integrity and remembrance. I'm so excited to have you here, Peter. Thank you so much for joining me. We just had a little preamble. We've got some history. So
That
just
sounds
a,
ominous.
just a little bit of, well, often I say to my guests, I met you online, and that sounds ominous too. We had an online relationship, which is
Mm,
no different for us, actually.
true.
So back almost 3.5 years ago, I released a podcast, but only about a month before the podcast started, I had a human design reading, and it was with you.
There you go.
So that's how we know each other, in short. Before we get into anything else, why don't you give us a little brief history of Peter Bastian? I'm completely aware that as we mature, the stories get longer because then there was that bit, there was that bit, there was that bit. Oh, and then that
I was going to
happened.
say, how much time do we have?
The abridged version, if you can.
Got it. Got it. Um, hmm. Well, I turned 50 this year, so let's
Yay.
start from the most recent. And I don't know, there's something so special about turning 50 for me. And I feel like um I was going to say not to be dramatic, but I am very dramatic, so just lean into it. Um, I feel like my whole life I've been working toward turning 50. And I guess it's because I feel a sense of arrival, like whatever that means, but just something within me has shifted. Um, but essentially, I was thinking about how do I introduce myself without taking 25 to 50 years to do it. Um, but essentially, I think I, as a young person, I grew up in a really beautiful home, wonderful parents, um, lived a pretty traditional life. I always had a sense of, I feel like there's something more. And I also had a lot of anxiety as a young person. And so, I didn't really like school. I found that challenging. I just didn't feel like I fit in. Um, and probably that has been a sense, a running theme of feeling like I don't quite fit in, and really wanting a sense of belonging, which I think is what we all want. I don't like to talk in generalizations, but I do feel like that's a human need, right? Um, and so um, I had a pretty big, um, pivotal world turn on its axis moment when I was 17. And I was out with a girlfriend and we were heading home late at night. And I was about to get into the front seat of the car and I put my hand out. And I just heard this massive voice that said, "Don't sit in the front seat." And I just was like, "Oh." And I just thought, okay. And I sat in the back seat. And then tragically, 5 minutes later, we crashed into the back of a truck and my friend was killed.
Oh,
And so at 17, to go through that and to suddenly have the world that you thought you knew be completely different and have to manage the um, ocean of emotions that comes with that. Um, I think that also really it set me off on a few different paths, but one around this pressure to make sure you make the most of your life. Um, and also the realizations that angels are real. because, you know, this was a voice in my head that didn't, it was so interesting because it was inside my head, but also outside my head. Like it was around me. It was this big, overwhelming loudspeaker voice. And years later, I thought, did I imagine that? And I did this meditation with the intention of hearing the voice again because I hadn't ever heard it again. Anyway, I was deep in this meditation, and then I heard it again, and it said, "What would you like to know?" And I just went, just completely freaked out, I think, because I hadn't heard it since. And it was just like, I just needed to know that I heard it. And that was it. Um, so, yeah, having that happen to me at 17, knowing that angels are real, having all my psychic gifts, which I believe have always been there, just really forefront, but not knowing how to make sense of it. I then, I wanted to throw myself into generic life. I just wanted normal. And I became a registered nurse. I got married, had 3 kids. And then, around mid 30s, I was feeling really unhappy and really struggling in motherhood. And still with that sense of I feel like I'm here for a reason, but I don't know what it is. And then I'd get in my head about it and think, who are you and all that kind of stuff. But it was toward my uh, just before I turned 40, I think. I went and had some acupuncture, as I love to do. And something opened up for me that day on the table, and I had this really lucid dream vision of myself being in a women's circle. And I was being part, like there was a massive fire in the middle, and there were women of all different nationalities and cultures, and they were passing me around the circle, and they were dancing and they were singing to me, and they were healing me. And I just remember having just this overwhelming sense of love and peace. And at the end of the vision, I was standing literally in the ashes. It was daybreak. It was just me standing in the ashes. And, I mean, there's a lot of symbolism there. And also, it felt and was very real for me. And I got this deep knowing, you need to lead women's circles. And I was like, what? I'd never been to a women's circle. I was a bit scared of women. I think having that anxiousness as a young person, not really being able to form deep friendships is how I felt. And yeah, I just said, okay, universe, well, if this is what you want me to do, then send me a sign because, I've never been to one that women scare the shit out of me. Actually, I had all this sisterhood wounding, didn't know how to deal with it. And I think it was like within 10 days, I got a random email from a random thing that I hadn't signed up to saying, do you want to learn how to lead women's circles?
Oh my God.
The subject line. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that couldn't be more obvious. So I replied, and that started the journey of me really coming back home to myself, taking off all the layers, reclaiming all those lost parts of myself, and really moving through my 40s, which I found my 40s quite challenging. Having said that, to be in circle and find yourself and find your calling. And then every time I step into circle, I feel like I'm at home, has just been the greatest blessing. So I think that's, well, I guess, and also along the way, picking up other things. I started Reiki in my 20s, became a Reiki master. Because again, always had those psychic abilities, but just kind of kept them on the down low because number one, I thought everyone could do it. Number two, and to an extent, everyone can, but I just kind of thought what my experience was normal. and then, as I say, gradually getting to know myself and coming home to myself more and more through Circle. I also then human design popped up into my world, and then gene keys. And so, you know, these parts all really came into the melting pot of Peter that then, as I say, led me to the woman who I am today. And I feel the most, I'm exactly the woman I want to be right now. So
Wow.
that's my story.
Okay, we're done. No. No, don't worry. I have questions. I have lots of questions. I'm really curious about this. When you say that your 40s were the most difficult or most challenging time of your life, I don't know if I said that exactly right. You've had a few, I think even since I've known you, you've had a few iterations of yourself within that frame. You've started with the finding the circle, and you're leading circles now. But so that's kind of been like your foundation. But there's been some kind of, yeah, iterations. What has been difficult and challenging? What are some of those things that have happened in that period of your life?
Yeah, it's interesting. I must admit, I feel like actually every decade I've had some stuff to work through. And again, that's part of my human design.
Okay.
As well as reaching 50, it's like I've graduated. Again, that's part of my human design.
Are you
So
a line six?
yeah.
I've been learning a little bit more about human design in the last couple of years. I've heard this.
Yeah.
I've
Okay.
heard about coming off the roof.
So I will circle back to your question, but just
Sorry.
for those of your listeners who do know human design, I am a 6-2 self-projected projector.
Okay.
We can unpack that later if we
Yeah.
need to, but yeah, the 6-2 is the role model hermit. So yeah, and the 6-9, like you say, is that whole thing. So for me, you know what? Identity has always been a big thing for me, and self-worth around identity. Again, in my astrology, human design, the whole thing.
Undefined G?
Well, actually,
Or
no.
not?
I
Ah.
have a defined G.
Sorry, I've interrupted you, but I'm just
No,
curious.
no, 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 because I know you have an undefined
Yes.
G.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I found that really strange that, you know, I'm meant to know who I am
Yeah.
as a defined G. However, part of my lesson has been coming, taking off the layers
Yeah.
to reconnect with who I
Sure.
am. A lot of other people could probably see who I was, but I couldn't necessarily. And I think that's part of projector life as well. So yeah, it was around identity, and I, again, with that really strong knowing that I'm here for a reason. I'm here to uh and it's really hard to even define what that reason is, you know. It's just a sense, it's just a knowing. And so I just felt a pressure and an urgency to get my fucking shit together, you know, and just like for some, I was driven by perfectionism. You know, I recognized that as a result of, you know, surviving a car accident, you have to unpack survivor's guilt, and I had to unpack the feeling that any mistake I made could result in someone dying. Like I didn't realize I had that program running. I just had so many limiting beliefs and programs running that I was finding out, and you know, taking that out of the box and having a look at it and going, oh wow, how has that served me? How hasn't it? Like, geez, I don't really like the look of that, and trying to throw it away, but it keeps like bouncing back at you. Try and throw something away, it keeps bouncing back until you actually, I believe, until you actually embrace it, you know, bring it closer and know that it's part of you, and that's okay. And so when you are an entrepreneur and when you do lead women's circles and when you are a 6-2 self-projected projector, a lot of your business is a reflection of who you are. And so my business has taken on a lot of iterations because I have. And I have grown and I have evolved. And I used to beat myself up so badly about that. And look, truth be told, there's in my quiet, wobbly moments, maybe sometimes I still feel like, oh, if only I'd just stuck at that, or if only I'd just kept on that tangent. But what I love, love, love is that I have gone full circle, pun completely intended. And I have come back to the thing that I really started with, which is circles, because that is my home, that is my true north, that is my compass. And then all those other pieces, even the first 40 years of my life, have all created this beautiful tapestry and this beautiful cauldron of experience from and learning from which I draw from and allows me, I think, to create incredibly connected, deep, transformational spaces. Does that answer the question?
I think so. Thank you. Yeah, it was lovely. Before we get into talking more about circle, because I don't think I've ever experienced one, trying to think if I ever have. Not a deliberate, conscious, I'm going to a circle. I'm curious about turning 50. Did you turn 50 this year?
Yes.
Yeah. Congratulations. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. It's so good to be here.
It's interesting, isn't it? I feel like I'm 51. I still feel like I'm kind of unpacking a whole bunch of stuff. I drank consistently, let's say, for the majority of my, late teens, right through to 3.5 years ago, 3.5 years ago. And I feel like once I stopped drinking, there was a whole bunch of stuff. It was like, oh shit, there. That's why I was drinking. So like there's, continual processing still going on. And like a relearning, like actually, I guess re-meeting parts of me that have been suppressed or never fully expressed, I guess. Where was I going with that? So yeah, for 50 for me has been like I was like so stoked to get here. I felt really good and I love it. I feel like that, hormonally there's more consistent energy, much more mental clarity, but there's still a bunch of unpacking to do. But I do know, this is like me rambling already.
I'm here for it.
People say, oh, halfway, blah, 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 getting older. And I'm like, that was just the warm up.
Yes. Yeah.
Now you get to pick the bits you liked, dissect the bits that, and unravel it all so that you can choose the bits that you're going to take to the next bit. It sounds like you're already there.
Well, yes, and right. Yes, and because I very much resonate with what you said. It's like, oh yeah, but now I'm at the good part. And that's what I mean. Like I feel like I've graduated and I've arrived and I'm fucking ready and I'm here and I'm living.
Yeah.
And I do think that there's a sense of all of that. And also there's more to discover. There's more to unpack. However, I feel now so much better equipped to do that in a way that is much more easeful and much more accepting. And it's just, it's kind of like I don't live life as though there's a destination anymore. It's more around this is life. Like right here, right now, let's live it and let's be in it. And you know what? Like bumping up against things that I don't like or that hurt or that, familiar old limiting patterns that pop up and go, whoo, here I am again. I'm like, oh, hello, you. Okay, what are you here to teach me now? And just, I think it's how we move through life now, I feel. It's interesting you said about hormones feeling more stable. And I actually, what year are we? 2025. 2 years ago, I had a hysterectomy.
Okay.
And so I remember actually turning, or the year that I was turning 45, and that was COVID year too, right? But I remember like New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, and I felt it in my body. I just thought something's changed. Like this feels really different. The energy feels really different. And so from there, I think, in hindsight, I was probably moving into perimenopause. Well, I was in it, right? But yeah, as I say, 2 years ago, I had to have a hysterectomy, and I was ready for it. But I also have found it incredibly hard to recover from.
Okay.
So, and I guess you don't know until you know, right? It's like before you have a baby, you don't know what it's like.
And
You're
even when
told,
you've had another one, it's not the same. So,
right,
yeah.
right. You think, yeah, I know this. I know how to do this. Like my third uh, birthing experience, my third baby, I thought, yeah, this is going to be so easy. I've got this nailed, and it was the hardest. So, yeah, thanks. But back to being 50 and hormones and that sort of thing. I heard a really beautiful expression, because I remember feeling, and like I'm only talking 3 to 5 years ago, or even 3 years ago, even 2 years ago, there just wasn't that much talk around menopause and what that meant for women. And I remember really trying to find books, podcasts, anything to read on it that wasn't purely what's physically happening to us. I wanted to know what else is happening to us, like spiritually, emotionally. Yes, I wanted to know all the physical stuff too. Um, anyway, I ended up finding a beautiful speech. It's like an hour long, I think, workshop by Jean Shinoda Bolen. And she's like what's the word I'm looking for? I can't remember now, but she has written several books, a lot of them on women's circles.
Okay.
Anyway, and I feel like it's either, and now I'm second guessing myself whether it was Jean or whether it was another woman I read, but nonetheless, a really wise woman said, when we go into menopause and we stop bleeding, we are actually going into another iteration of ourselves as women, of becoming incredibly fertile in a different way and incredibly creative in a different way. Because instead of releasing our blood and outwardly creating these amazing children, if we choose to, if we can, that sort of thing, but instead now we're holding on to that, and that becomes that fertile ground for us to create a whole host of things after we turn 50. Like instead of it being time to slow down, time to, become the old lady, I feel like, oh, actually I'm ready to like step out and proclaim, here I am. And so then having my hysterectomy, I felt quite emotionally and spiritually ready for that. I had a conversation with my womb, and she was ready to go, and she said, over to you. But I think physically I found it very challenging to recover from, and I don't know that I was necessarily set up in the best way for that. And I think every woman's experience is different. I'm 2 years in now, and I feel the best I've felt, which is amazing. And I think going from Well, I'm talking to a sporty spice right here in front of me, and I've always loved that about you, and
Oh,
that has not been my story. However, I reprogrammed that and I've created it to be my story. And now I am doing regular PT and weights. And then I also just introduced some yoga regularly again. And I don't know where I've gone with this, but I've just kind of meandered down the road with what I was saying. But ultimately, 50's fabulous.
yeah. And I love that you just said that you've rewritten your story. I think that's a really, really super strong message for people. We can rewrite our stories. We
Yeah.
might not necessarily energetically be wired in the same way, especially when we look at our human design, right? You look at my human design chart and it's just got lots of lots of energy. It's like, well, of course she needs to freaking move. Like, what else am I going to
Yes.
do?
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that you can't make those conscious choices and find ways for your life to look the way you want it to look, right? Just because you're
Yeah.
not necessarily that kind of naturally inclined, I suppose. But that and I
Yeah.
love that idea of rewriting the story.
Yeah. And I think as well, I wanted, as I'm getting older, I want to be strong and
Yeah,
healthy
yeah,
and mobile. I hope to have lots of grandbabies and I want
yeah,
to, be on the floor playing with them. And I feel like I have so much life to live that I want to give myself the best opportunity to enjoy it and be immersed in it. So, and I think physically that's important to
yeah,
have your physical health, feeling very blessed that I do have that. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Before I've already said this once. Before we talk about circles, I'm saving it to the end. Not to the end, but till a
Yeah, yeah,
bit
yeah.
more, a bit more. When you found human design,
Yeah.
what was your experience around that, and how did that shape what you do now, and how you mentioned those iterations of yourself, and like, has it allowed you to be more accepting of making changes to the way that you do things, depending on what's going on? Is that a bit of a
Short answer, yes. Like, for me, human design's been with me for about 8 years, I think now. And when I first learned about my human design, I cried because I was just like, oh, and like remembering I've had this struggle with identity and self-worth around identity, feeling like I'm too much for the world, trying to shrink myself to fit in, terrified of standing out, yet as a projector, you do. So, yeah, it was incredibly helpful for me in knowing so many things. Why I didn't, I guess I try and refrain from absolute statements, yet absolute statements seem to come out of my mouth. And I think what that is telling me and telling others is the profound impact that it has had on me. And really, so finding out I was a projector and I think the biggest thing as a projector is a projector needs to talk. And you need to talk to be able to make decisions, especially, and lay it on top of that, a self-projected projector is that I'm designed to talk to not only help myself make decisions, but help others make decisions and be guided and hear the words that come out of my mouth. So I was carrying wounding around, feeling like I was too much, feeling like I talked too much, feeling like I was too loud, feeling like I could never get to the point. Um, and then also wondering why I couldn't seemingly keep up with everyone else. And so, you know, the classic thing of when you find out you're a projector, manifestor, or a reflector is going, oh, because we're not part of that 70% of the population who's a generator or a manifesting generator who have the ability to be have sustainable energy. There's lots of nuances to it, and it's not as though I don't have energy. I just have it in a really different way, and it's more focused and intense for like 4 hours instead of 8. So yes, it made a huge difference to me. It gave me a permission slip to start allowing myself to be different. And I believe we're all different and we're all unique. And I think that's our strength. And also, when you're trying to unpack those wounds of not wanting to stand out, not wanting to be different, you know, you're trying to fit in. So it's just a process. So yes, a massive permission slip for me to know that I need to speak, and it's one of the things I'm here to do. I do need rest, a lot of it. And actually, that's because as a projector, we are processing a lot of collective energy as well. It's not only our energy that we're processing, but there's a collective frequency that we're tapped into for the evolution of all humanity. You know, so there is a little extra there. I think as well, in terms of learning how it feels in my body when I speak, how it feels in my body to know when is the right time to speak, learning that because a lot of projectors, we feel like, well, what is this wait for the invitation thing? Do I just sit around twiddling my thumbs and, you know, like before I do anything? It's actually, it's far more exposing than that for a projector, I think, because it's not about sitting around doing nothing. It's about getting out and being who you are, letting others see that, and then waiting for those invitations. And what does that mean? Waiting for people to invite you to speak, waiting for people to invite you to share your gifts. However, they have to be able to see them and experience them in some way before they invite you in more deeply. So, you know, for someone who's trying to like not stand out too much, it's like, actually, no, you're a lighthouse. You need to be out and sharing. And then I think the other thing for me, and I'm just remembering this as I'm speaking now, was this feeling like I always needed approval. And acknowledgement, and that felt very weak. And I believe that we all need to give ourselves approval first. That's the number one, you know. And also, as a projector, there is definitely an element of not necessarily needing others' approval, but others' acknowledgement, because you need to be seen. You see each other so clearly. You see others, I beg your pardon, so clearly. Very hard to see yourself. And again, I think why Circle was such and is such a medicine and safe place is because you see a reflection of yourself in everyone. You know, you learn yourself through a reflection, through how you respond or react to whatever else is happening. So I think, I would say motherhood, circles, human design, three biggest, and angels.
Teachers.
Yeah, biggest teachers, biggest, well, cornerstone. I don't know. Let's go with teachers. Yeah, yeah. My loves.
Love it. You gave us a segue into circles.
Oh, good.
I was going to ask, in terms of human design, being a projector, you mentioned like needing to be in the right space so that people can see you, so that they can invite you to do things. How has that played into you and your current work? You've just sort of started, correct me if I'm wrong, running circles again recently after some time away from those things. So yeah, how I don't need to repeat myself. You heard the question, I think.
Well, to
Were
be
you
honest,
invited?
oh,
Basically. How did that
thank
all
you.
work?
Oh, that's great. It's so funny
Because
because I'm like, what was the question?
you must have a feeling, like if
Mm.
you've got your, you know, your spirit guides or your angels, you're intuitive, psychic, you know when the time's right, you feel all of those things. But as a projector, you're supposed to have an invitation, right? You know, supposed to, or that's the thing.
So
How does that work?
interestingly, yeah. So with the invitation, like I feel I already have an invitation for circles,
Okay.
right, and women's
Yeah.
circles because and I frequently have people reach out and say, "When are you going to do a circle
Yeah.
again?" You know, so like I have that, and also with the invitation, it's about being ready to meet it. You know, are you ready to meet it? And so a projector needs to crucially spend a lot of time um, with themselves to allow themselves to be open to the invitation and to make sure that they're discerning around which invitation is right for them. Because, you know, as a projector, when someone recognizes you and invites you, it's like, who, me? You've seen me? Oh, why, thanks. Of course. However, um, we don't necessarily need to say yes to all the invitations. And I think it's really important that when we're ready, we're ready. So yes, I took a hiatus, if you will, of not running circles for a bit, and that coincided with my hysterectomy. Um, I was feeling really burnt out, and I was feeling really exhausted. Um, and it wasn't burnt out from circles as such; it was just burnt out from life, I think. And obviously, it's a huge thing having a hysterectomy too. And I wanted to be able to take some time off. And I actually went and got myself a 9 to 5 job for a bit because I felt like I needed to step back. So interestingly, though, after about 3 to 6 months, I was like, I don't know that this is necessarily for me. Like it's kind of been nice and I've got a lot out of it. And also, I really feel like maybe I'm meant to be doing my own thing again. And I really feel like maybe I'm meant to be doing circles um, and again, I just love how the angels work and how the universe works, right? I think it was in January. I had some random email come into my inbox saying, at last I've found you, Peter. I've been wanting to find you to find out about learning how to lead women's circles." And I'm like, how did this woman get my email? And anyway, we had a phone conversation. And again, I just got off that phone call and remembered, oh, that's where I meant to be. Okay. So then I was like, thank you, universe, for showing me that. And then I had already planned to do a book writing retreat, right? A solo
Yep.
book writing retreat. And because I feel like there's so much I want to share and write down. And yeah, anyway, so I was doing that for this beautiful week down by the beach. And I remember probably about 4 weeks prior to that, actually, I was like, I'm going to lead women's circles again, and I'm really excited about this. And so I set one up for, I think, the 4th of May or something like that, was a Sunday. And it coincided with the end of my book writing week. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. And I actually also thought, if this is my path and this is where I'm meant to be, how am I going to do that? How am I going to, step back from what I'm doing and reemerge and, just, but I had this really strong sense that this is where I'm meant to be going in life. And so I said to the universe, I'm ready to claim what is mine now. And I said this prayer like 3 nights in a row. And anyway, I got back to work. I do this. I don't know why, but my 9 to 5
Yep.
on Monday. And the first meeting I had was to tell me that my role had been made redundant.
Oh.
Effective immediately. And I was like,
Yes.
oh, right? Look, I'm not going to lie, I was a little blindsided. I was like, holy fuck, this isn't like the timeline. This isn't what I thought. And then I just felt this giggle emerge. Like I just started giggling and going, oh, wow, like that was really fast manifesting, Peter. Like
I love that. So
just like
cool.
that.
Boom.
And all the human fear came into it. Like, I'm not ready. I haven't put all my ducks in a row. I don't. And also a very, very strong sense of the universe never gives me anything I can't handle. Never. And when I remembered that, my heart and my chest just expanded. And I just thought, oh, what a gift. Like, what a gift. Again, human self and look, human me, soul me, whole me, same. But I do recognize that there's a wiser part of me that leads the way more often these days, which is really, really beautiful. And then there's like the human little Peter who gets scared. And I definitely had some scary and bumpy moments that week. But you know how we're talking earlier around how we lead ourselves more quickly through upheaval or change or perceived difficulty. And I really feel super proud of myself because I could have spiraled into all sorts of negative talk around that, but I just didn't. I was just like, oh, I love you, universe. I love you, angels. Okay. I thank you for giving me your
Oh, there,
confidence.
yeah, backing you
Right.
100%.
So, and I just led an amazing circle where I felt like, again, I was almost in tears about how amazing I felt, and just, and everything was just beautiful, blissful. I just had another circle yesterday as well, and then it's like all these pieces are just being put in place just perfectly. And as long as I remember that, and as long as I don't try and get too fixated on having it perfect, I
Yeah.
had a bit of a perfectionism spiral last week. Again, human. But as long as I just remember that I'm always taken care of, it's all happening for me, not to me. And how am I embracing this? And how am I loving this? So I have also, I'm about to start a 12-week circle as well.
Oh, wow.
And I'm very excited about that. And then also just really coming home to sit in my heart. Peter, you're here to activate other circle leaders as well. It's such a sweet spot for me, and it's really when I feel my most projector success. Our alignment theme is success as a projector. So success feels and looks differently for everyone. And for me, it's when I just feel like luminous and I'm at home and everything's like I'm in that it's a flow state. So yeah. So that's where I'm at now, and it feels I was just going to say, it feels so good to be home, you
Yeah,
know? Yeah.
you can tell. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, let me read some of these questions about circles. I am conscious that I've asked you lots of questions and we've gone kind of in the direction we've gone in. We are edging closer towards our hour. Are you okay if we run over, or are you
Absolutely. I
okay?
mean,
Cool. I
ask a
mean,
projector to speak. She's going to speak.
beautiful. I love it. Go for it. So, okay, let's get into Circle. They're a potent container for transformation. You've mentioned how they can be a mirror for one another. Can you describe what happens when like maybe from the process of arriving in Circle and that sort of thing, why someone would choose to be there, and then what happens in the Circle, and what kind of happens, what are the energetics
Yeah, yeah.
that
Great
take place.
questions.
Take us on a journey.
Okay. Um, so to answer the question, why do women come to circles? I think it's varied for everyone. And ultimately, we all feel a pull, a pull and a call in some way, shape, or form. Not everyone has quite a dramatic as like an entrance or, vision as myself. However, it's it's a sense of wanting to feel that sense of belonging, a sense of connection, a sense of seeing yourself and understanding and remembering the truth of who you are. And it is quite a sweeping statement, but I do believe that our sole purpose is to remember the truth of who we are. I've said this for years and years and years because I was like, what is my sole purpose? And then it was, oh, that's right. It's just to remember the truth of who you are. And so it's almost it's almost hard to articulate why women want to come to Circle, but I think it distills down to that connection piece, the sense of belonging, and they're searching for something. They're wanting something. And a lot of women are feeling buried by life, feeling like, who am I underneath all the roles I play? They have that sense of, there's got to be more. I'm here for a reason. Like all those existential type of questions, I think, come into it as well as some women just because they're really curious and their friend asked them to come, and they're like, what is this and what do we do? And I love to say that when you arrive in Circle, it's like an exhale. You sit down and it's like, oh, again, it's like, I'm home. It's not always the case initially, especially, when you're nervous and you haven't been, you don't know what's going on. And oh my God, is this a cult? Or like, are we going to have to sit here and chant? Or what are they going to do? Are they going to make me take the clothes off? Or blah, blah, blah. I've done all those things, by the way, but no, not every circle. um, so what do we do in Circle? Each circle has a theme or an intention. And so, a really good circle leader, this is what I always teach, it's about tuning into yourself as the leader of the circle. Again, what I teach is you're a leader and a participant, right? You're both. And you're not sitting up there on your stand or your throne with your minions around you. You're in there sitting with them because you are them. And we are each other. So it comes to an intention, and I create a theme around that, and then there's a rhythm and a flow of Circle, and it's I like to drop people into the space energetically. So I'll do an opening, and opening up the directions. I'm calling in the angels. We're, all doing a grounding meditation. So I'm really setting the space in that way. And again, it's not again. And then it's about establishing a connection. So creating something that helps the women feel relaxed, feel like they can exhale, particularly for those who are new to Circle. And so we have things like paired shares. So especially for those of us, and I was terrified to speak in Circle initially. And everyone has to speak when they come to my Circle. And I know that that's like I don't even want to say has to speak, but everyone's given space to speak is a better way of putting it. And so, yeah, I like to start with a paired share. And so I create a question that, it's an opening question, and women sit and connect. So it's about having women feel safe, connected, grounded. Then I will branch into the theme. What are we here for? What are we here to explore? So, for example, on the weekend, the theme was the mirror and the map. And so, really looking at ourselves and understanding, who am I in this moment? And is this the woman I want to be? Is this the truth of me? And who is the truth of me? And how do I find my way back to her when I forget, or if I've forgotten? And so you can create different activities, because I think as well, Circle is not a workshop, right? It's not someone that's sitting there teaching you stuff. It's an embodied experience. And so I don't want to sit there and give everyone the answers, because actually that's not my job. Because everyone who comes to Circle, my view is, and really I try and extend this to my greater life, everyone has their own answers. And how do you create a space where they can find that for themselves? Way more powerful than if I sit there and tell you. And I might not know all the answers. I mean, I'm pretty good, but also I am humble enough to know, actually, I don't have all the answers. However, I can create a space for you to find them. So we'll have, maybe movement. We always have some movement, actually. We can do things like, I remember one beautiful Circle, I had pots of soil for everyone, and we had seeds. And so, the theme was all around, like, what are the seeds that we're planting? What's the intention? Who do we want to be, or how do we want this to happen? And so really creating the question and having a group share as well. So then each woman goes around, or we go around the circle, and each woman has the opportunity to speak. And there's something so incredibly magical about witnessing women speak without interruption, without someone telling them they're wrong, or how to do it, or how to fix themselves, or agreeing with us. Like all the things that we usually do for one another in social situations, I find, like, and especially as women, like, we're so beautiful and loving and nurturing, but we do want to kind of dive in and make sure someone feels okay, But when you're in Circle and you're watching a woman unravel, and I don't want everyone to think that every time you go to Circle, you unravel and you have this massive,
breakdown or
yeah, exactly. You're not breaking down all the time. However, you are having breakthroughs. And so, there was, I've had women say, I haven't cried in 18 months. And that's the first time I've cried. And that felt so good because she was allowed to. And no one tried to make her feel better about it. Everyone was just like, this is okay. Your tears are welcome. And then in the same circle, another woman, laughing and sharing about how she's in the best season of her life. Like, I love that there's an opportunity for every woman to be unique. But what happens when you bring all those unique people together is there's this beautiful circle magic that happens. So there's the energetics of the fact that each circle is as a result of the women who came, the sum of the parts plus extra magic, because it's not just the women there, it's everyone's angels and guides. It's the intention of the circle. It takes on an energy of its own, and as the leader and participant of that, I see my role as just gently guiding, just gently guiding, opening doors, and also really beautifully being able to not close the doors, but close the energy at the end of the circle as well. Guiding people back into, it's always about guiding people back into their hearts and having them walk away feeling seen and heard, loved and accepted is just like the bee's knees best thing ever, because women walk away lighter, they're smiling, they're like hugging each other. I had someone at Circle yesterday. I knew the numbers that were coming, and so I had prepared that, but I had this sense. I thought it's going to be a last minute Lucy. Like, I better pack an extra thing. I just know it. Sure enough, as I'm driving to the space, I had a text message from a woman saying, "Can I just meet you there, and can I give you the money at the door?" And I'm like, "There she is." And I'm like, "Yeah." Anyway, so it was really sweet because I said, I knew this was going to happen, and I knew, I packed extra because I knew someone was coming. She went, "Oh my God, would you believe it?" She said, "I dreamt about you last night as well."
Oh,
And I woke up and I thought, I just have to get there. So I love the magic that goes into the circle space as well. And I feel like I could talk about circle forever. I'm not sure if I answered your specific questions,
yeah.
or I touched on quite a few different pieces in there.
Yeah, definitely. You gave us. I was there.
Oh, goody.
I was like, I had to bring myself back. Oh, we're recording a podcast. I was there with you in the circle. Yeah.
Oh, look, yeah. And I guess I would just love to say, I feel like every human needs to be in circle, male or female. I run women's circles. I'm not opposed to running men's circles, and also I'm a woman, and so as I say that out loud,
It's just a dynamic thing, right?
it
It's
is,
just
it is,
it's a
it's
shift
different.
in the, like, we might understand men to a degree, but not the way that they understand men,
Yeah, it's a really
and
good way of putting it.
the same for women.
Yeah. And I think there's, the masculine and feminine is within each of us, regardless of gender as well, and I think that's a really beautiful thing to remember too, is I, even though my life's calling, I feel, is women's circles and initiating other women to lead circles, I'm surrounded by men. I have three sons and my husband, and like, I think of one niece, everyone else is male,
Wow.
and I love that too, because I have a really strong connection to the masculine, and I love being the feminine expression for those masculine men around me, and helping them um, expand that part of themselves too.
Okay, so you've mentioned that you want to teach other women how to hold space in circle. You've mentioned, or the need for us to remember ourselves. Is that's not the phrase that you used, but
Remember the truth of who you are.
remember the truth of who we are. Why is that so important?
Wow. What a great question.
Is it like a timing thing? Like, there's lots of stuff going on in the world right now. Yeah, is it, I'm not going to say anything else.
I think that it all goes hand in hand.
Mm,
Um, so if I there's this expression about the divine feminine is rising. My feel is she's already risen. She's like waking everyone up. Like she's already here. I've been saying that for years actually. She's not rising, she's risen. She's like, okay, come on. And so I think that there are lots of us who feel that energy and feel that call. I know it's esoteric, but it's a real calling. I think that circles are a really, really beautiful and, in my case, essential way to remember the truth of who we are. And I feel like not everyone, but a lot of us have that inner sense of wanting to know what is my purpose. And so, again, if your purpose is to remember the truth of who you are, and how do you do that? Where do you find that? Where do you remember that? It's in circle.
mm,
And so, the more circles we have on the planet, I believe the world will be a better place. So, I see and know my role is to expand and multiply that by giving other women the grounding and the tools to find themselves so then they can hold space and lead others as well. I think it's a really important role that we
mm,
take on as a women's circle leader. And therefore, you're always needing to work on yourself and cultivate, instead of work on, cultivate yourself as well, as a woman, as a human, as a leader. And so I I don't pay attention too much to the drama of the world,
mm,
if I'm honest. I don't watch the news. Sometimes I'll check in with it. And I don't think that's then making me naive or uninformed, because inevitably I hear big news. However, I don't want to be immersed in the lower vibrational energy, and I don't say that to spiritually bypass either. Like I'm real, I'm grounded, and I think that's important. And also, I very much believe that we create our reality.
mm,
We create what we want to experience, and I'm mindful and I create boundaries, loving boundaries, to curate the experience I want to have. And I think that's a really important thing to do, to have that sense of joy, that sense of connection, that sense of belonging, that sense of happiness, that sense of, for me at least, I like to have meaning, even when the meaning is there is no meaning.
mm,
I love going into philosophical tangents all around that. And also, when it comes down to it, that feeling I get of sitting in circle and feeling like I'm at home is the
mm,
best feeling in the world. It's just, it's my version of bliss. And so, how can I create that in my wider world and my experience, in my family, in my everyday life? And how can I be that person all the time because she rocks. She's amazing. And I love her and I love being her and I love that expression of me because that is the truth of who I am. And why wouldn't you want to feel like that?
Love it.
Yeah.
That's
Does that answer
beautiful.
that
Yeah,
question?
I think so. I can't remember what the question was.
Me neither. On and off
I
on a
think that,
riff.
yeah, it was beautiful. It was lovely. Oh, why do we need to find
Yes.
ourselves?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there were so many different things that I could have added to that. There are a lot of guests that I've spoken to in recent times who've talked about, the need we can feel shifts happening in the world. And the need for those small interconnected groups is really important. And there might be people that do focus on the news and the fear of what's going on in the world. But when there are people like you who are bringing those small groups back together, there's a flow-on effect. There's a flow-on effect of the energy that gets
100%.
carried
Yeah.
out there. And also I feel like when people like you are doing this work, you're creating spaces so that if the world goes completely to shit, or when, they got somewhere to go.
Yeah.
Because
That's a
because
really
what
good
we
point.
need is each other.
Yes. Yeah, most definitely. And I think certainly one group of 10 women will actually affect 100 lives because of the ripple effect that we each have,
Yeah.
And I know as well, so before COVID, I was doing in-person and online circles. And then with COVID, everything went online, which was necessary. However you sit, apparently at the time it was necessary, and so that all happened. and yet, I think what that showed us is how deeply impactful in person and those smaller groups and deep, real, authentic connection is so vital for us as humans. And that's not to say that I don't also love and value online circles, because I 100% do. I've got friends all over the world because I've connected with women all over the world through online circles, and I feel like, oh, I could go there and I'll meet up with her. I'll go there. You feel like you've got friends all over the world, which you do. And again, it's that ripple effect that one circle of women can change the world, So I love that you shared that. And I do also agree it's important. I think the way in which we're leading ourselves through life is also different too. And which is a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. And the more that we I heard something the other day on a podcast which I really really resonated with me, just around leadership. And we're moving less from a position of people being leaders and providing solutions, and more to leaders living their lives and showing us how they're doing it, the role modeling. And again, maybe why I love being a 6'2" and being 50 at this time. I feel like I'm just hitting my sweet spot, and that being said, who knows what the future holds? And I think that that's something to embrace. Like, how do we be really mindful of what's in our present moment? Because our present moment and the words we speak and the thoughts and emotions and everything right now creates the next moment and the next moment and the next moment. Yeah. So it's pretty amazing.
Love it. Thank you so much. We could keep going, but
We
but
could. Another time.
another time, part two. Thank you so much for joining us. I loved everything about it. It's been fab. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much for inviting me to be on your podcast. It's
I
been
see you.
an absolute pleasure. Oh, received. Thanks, Nadine.
Mwah.